407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war, and we have come to dedicate a portion of it as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this land. For the brave men, living and dead, who struggle here, have consecrated it far beyond our powers to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion for those who here gave the last full measure of devotion. It is for us, the living, to hear highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That nation of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. It is perhaps the most famous address ever written on the back of an envelope in American history. And it was written by a not my president who people wanted to boycott an inauguration. It was a president who served over a nation and a house divided against itself that could not stand. And within just months, the clouds of war began to billow. But sometimes, only when it's darkest can we see the stars. From that war that pitted brother against brother, we found emancipation of slaves held in bondage. From that civil war, we found one man in the North who Martin Luther King described as a vacillating president, who yet seized upon his higher angels and decided on a course toward a more perfect union and America great again, where there was malice towards none and charity to all. While one of the leaders who opposed Union forces in battles throughout the Southeast and even up to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where that address was delivered, encouraged his soldiers to stop fighting, retired from public life and tried to go back to a farm like Cincinnatus and George Washington when his time in history had passed. But he found himself doing his old work as an educator at a small school in Virginia that is now today the most competitive college in the Commonwealth of Virginia. A school where there is only one rule: that students behave themselves as ladies and gentlemen. That is the basis of Southern honor. And on the basis of that noblesse oblige and antiquated code, from the death of Bajan Gazard, after others have used it for their own political purposes to the detriment of a family, sacrifice of a slain son, from this honored dead person, we must take increased devotion for this one who gave the last full measure of devotion. It was an Iranian family that lost a son, an Iranian family that every year, regardless of president, went with cheer and celebration to watch the lighting of a Christmas tree in front of the White House. It was a son who had no enemies, terrified of guns, self-proclaimed Buddhist, who was probably terrified in those last 4 minutes on a highway. Probably terrified during those 10 minutes when he waited for an ambulance. Probably horrified during those 10 days that he lay in the hospital, brain damaged, while doctors only knew at that point, apparently, that there were 3 bullets in his head, 1 in his wrist, and others unaccounted for. And only after his death, and apparently in a autopsy report, was discovered there was yet another bullet still remaining in his head when he died and passed on to glory. A sensationalized video that progressives and others have promoted worldwide, places as far away as the United Kingdom, New York, Chicago, and LA, is now tainted to such an effect that the police can easily walk into a courtroom and argue self-defense. And that is what some call compassion. But what we are offering, and which I believe even our president will stand behind, is proposed legislation, the All Lives Matter Defense Act, which will in excessive force situations serve as a burden shifting mechanism where the normal deference and presumption of innocence granted to law enforcement officers engaged in their duties is overcome by a showing of failure, persistent failure, as in this case, to follow standard arrest and apprehension procedures in any offense categorized as a misdemeanor or less. This will do 2 things. 1, it will provide the victim an opportunity to apply the minimum force necessary to repel the attack and evade and escape his intended or her intended captors. But also, it will provide a defense in court in the event that others are injured as that person tries to flee. But also, it will serve as its own cause of legal action, entitling the victim to punitive and treble compensatory damages in reward for not only the threat to their civil rights, but also their honor and their very lives. This measure is nothing but the right thing. There is no moral objection that can be raised against it. It is revenue neutral. There is no fiscal argument that can be raised against it. And the only objection that can be raised against it is because of purely political and self-serving reasons. And this is a time where there is a suffering family and a slain son, where we have to think of someone other than ourselves. Selfless service is doing the right thing without request, is doing the right thing without reward, and often, far too often, doing the right thing without gratitude. And so for Christ's sake, let's give them heaven. My name is Major Mike Webb, and I am running for U.S. Congress. With liberty, honor, and excellence. By God, let's make America great again. Honest. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.